Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Looking for Love in All the Wrong Dust Jackets, a show where three disgruntled harpies talk to you about everything we love in romance, whether that's books, movies, TV shows, whatever we like. My name's Liz.
I'm Danny.
I'm Wiggles.
And welcome to the episode. Today, we are reading How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kuang. But before we get into that, I gotta warn the people. I have to let you know that we are crass and unhinged. We are very unladylike, and we love to swear and talk about all of the naughty times. Mm-hmm. So if you're not into that, you've been warned.
Indeed.
So take that. We've warned you. Watch out.
Thank you. Really loved the backup on that one.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Good input, Wiggles.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This would normally be the part of the episode where I would go, hey, get me caught up on your lives. And we talk about like books we've been reading in the last week or like movies, TV shows, whatever. We're not doing that anymore. We're getting that out of here.
So there.
Instead, we're going to have an episode every month or so, whatever we're feeling, that kind of just goes over things that we've like read that are not a podcast episode, kind of like a wrap up situation. But we're not doing that today. So today we're just going to go right into the author.
Yulin Kuang, a screenwriter, director who's got credits that you'll see all over the CW. I ship it. Hulu's Dollface. I can't say that I know any of those shows. I'm so sorry.
I love Dollface. I've watched it and it's very fun.
I've been meaning to watch it.
I enjoy it.
I've never even heard of it, so I'll add it to my list. She was fired from Hallmark movies for being too hip for Hallmark, so she's already like a winner, honestly. Like that's not a loss, that's a win. That's a like, I'm so cool. Hallmark's bullshit. And I didn't write a story about a guy who is a gingerbread factory owner who's going to like marry the snow princess. She's also adapting screenwriter of Emily Henry's People We Meet on Vacation, which is coming out pretty soon. So watch out for that. As well as the writer-director of the forthcoming Beach Read, which is also Emily Henry's hot books situation. She lives in Pasadena with her husband Zach and their orange cat Eloise. So she's a cat lady. So like, what else? What else do you need to know?
I mean, she's my people.
She's a winner. Fuck Hallmark. She's a winner. Writing Emily Henry stuff. She's a winner. She's got a cat.
Is it weird that I would hate watch the gingerbread situation you described though?
A little bit.
A little
bit.
Although, like, Hallmark, if you want to pay me for that idea, I've got like 20 more in the bag, you know? I'll write your specials. I like money. So, Danny, what is this book? Not Emily Henry's books, but Yulin Kuang's book, How to End a Love Story, about?
Okay, so this book is about a girl, Helen, she writes YA books that have become incredibly popular, and they've decided to adapt it into a TV series. So she is going to LA to be in the writer's room with them while they create this TV series and see how it goes. She gets there and finds out that one of the other writers in the room, the second in command, basically, is the guy that I believe she was a senior in high school at the time.
Yeah.
And by the way, big trigger warning here. So big trigger warning on it. Her sister completed suicide by diving in front of this guy's car on purpose. So they keep saying he killed her. That's true and not. It was not purposeful. He did not mean to. It was all Michelle's doing. So she's having to deal with that situation and deal with the guilt of actually kind of enjoying his company and everything. And then later on, the guilt of falling for him.
Mm-hmm.
Discuss.
Yeah. So, as Danny put it, massive trigger warning for suicide, loss of family, all of that.
Helping with unwilling participation in someone's death.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we understand if this isn't for you. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Completely understand. We will not have our feelers hurt.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this book overall is not following type. of what you expect from a romance novel from the jump. Immediately, we're getting a story that is more difficult to get to that end zone than I think I've ever read before. Like,
but I liked it.
Yeah. Like, in terms of enemies, not Emily's to lovers, enemies.
No, but that would be a great name for a book. Emily's to lovers.
Yes. Oh my God. I can picture it already. It's two girls named Emily and they're like, I'm the better Emily. No, I'm the better Emily. And then they're just, bam, we're good Emilys.
Well, if you call out a name in your bed, you don't know. Nobody will know.
Am I doing self-congratulations or am I giving you a high five? Hard to say.
Who's to say?
Okay, but also, who's calling out their own name in bed?
I don't know.
Just afterwards, I'm like, good job, Liz. You get that one good.
Way to go, Liz. That was great.
Gross.
Listen, what are you going to do if your partner is also named Emily?
Well, I mean, yeah, but that's a different thing.
That's what I'm saying.
But you're not doing it about... Anyway, Danny.
Anyway, so what I'm saying is that in terms of enemies to lovers, even with that, like, this is kind of a different approach to that. They're not from warring countries or something like that, but they definitely are starting at that enemies space with, I would say, the biggest gap I've ever read to have to cover in one book.
When the book started, I was really confused as to how they were going to get there. Because I was like, that is so insurmountable. Even if she logically can understand that he didn't do this, he did not murder her sister.
Right.
You know, he had no intention of hurting her. It was not in his fault in any way, shape, or form. Still, man, that's got to be like, and for him.
That's the other thing,
to
too.
look at her.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, especially if you've completely detached from ever interacting with that person in your life after this event, how seeing their face doesn't immediately draw to your mind the worst interaction you could have ever had with this person. You know?
Oh, how painful was that scene where she's talking about at the funeral and he showed up trying to pay his respects and then they screamed at him to get out, which I do not blame anybody in that situation.
Right.
His father did try to warn him against going and he maybe should have listened. But
he was also like 18.
And he was trying to do what he thought was the respectful thing.
Right.
But also get a little bit of closure for himself because he's another innocent party in this whole thing.
Right.
Which I also felt, so this is a little bit later in the book, but I really appreciate the fact that they did this. I also felt that he got it to a degree because she took him to go see her grave.
Yeah, that whole sequence of them like coming together in their hometown and like almost reintroducing themselves to each other as adults, but in that very like
in that setting,
heavily like that setting was really powerful and emotional. My big complaint about the book is I feel like they didn't take enough time getting to the like accept like the beginning accepting each other phase. Like to me it kind of felt like Helen went from I hate you, I don't want to be around you, to I don't have a choice to be around you, but I'm going to be crabby about it, to okay, we're friends now. Like I feel like there was just a little bit too much of a jump there.
I guess I didn't feel that way. I felt that it was appropriate in how it was done because of the writer's room. If it was just they were seeing each other in the office passing by, that slowing that down makes a lot of sense. But anybody who's worked on a team where you're with the same people day in, day out, sometimes excruciatingly long hours, the part where they were all sharing stories about their past that like honestly are kind of inappropriate to be sharing with people felt so real and honest to me. It felt like the kind of thing that happens coming from a theater perspective rather than a television perspective, that kind of happens like while you're in the thick of tech and you're in that horrible hurry up and wait moment and you're in the wait aspect of it where you're like, yeah, I remember this time that this happened, and you're just sharing traumatic stories. And he talks about that before they really get into it. Grant does, about how you have almost this false sense of connection with people that you don't really have a connection with. And so it makes sense that that would speed up the timeline of them getting to know one another and realizing you have to accept that that's a real person in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think, just from my perspective as somebody who hasn't done that since college, like that's where the big gap was from like my audience member perspective. I didn't have that immediate connection that you're talking about to the world she's describing. So I wanted more like give and pull.
Well, and the other thing is that you have to take into account too that there are fairly large time jumps in here too, because they're creating a whole TV series during the course of this book. They filmed the entire thing in the course of this book and everything and written it. So there are weeks that you don't really hear anything about what's been happening. They've just been living their normal lives of they're in the writer's room, they're getting everything, written and everything, and then they're back at home for Christmas, and then they're back and they're editing everything and creating the sets and everything. So there are big time jumps where we really don't see what's been happening, where they probably are interacting normally like they, in the writer's room, but aren't necessarily like one-on-one.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think sometimes the author relied on those time jumps a little too much. Like there are too many scenes of, and then during the last week, blah, 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 blah happened, instead of like showing me these moments that happened in that last week.
Well, I will say one thing I noticed a lot with this author is that you can tell that she still was leaning on her screenwriting experience quite a bit, because a lot of the jumps felt like the thing where like you end a scene and you're in the next one already,
Yeah.
And a lot of times I liked it, but there were times where I was like, hold up, how did we arrive here?
Yeah.
That also happened with perspective shifts, because we'd be like in the middle of a scene and then all of a sudden just shift perspective. And I'm like, whoa, hold up, rewind. What?
Yeah, there were definitely a few times where I was like, I need to back up. I don't know where I'm at. I don't know how we got here. I don't know who's speaking.
I didn't have that much of an issue with the audiobook because it was dual perspective.
That would have helped a lot, I think.
Yeah. You had a nice voice.
Didn't you?
Yeah.
The blush is a blushing.
I didn't think about it when I was listening to it, but now I'm like, oh, I can hear it in my head now.
Oh my.
Yeah. I will say, while I am a little bit exhausted by the authors telling the story of the romance writer, I do really like when authors lean on their actual lived experience.
Yeah.
Things like The Love Hypothesis, which we talked about, where it's like, it's really clear that Allie Hazelwood is drawing on real lived experience. And I felt that a lot in this book too.
Well, I think the one thing about this book, though, is it was different as far as like the authorship, right? Because it was somebody who wrote a book previously, and now we're doing a TV show. And so she's also like a fish out of water, because she
don't know how to do this shit.
Right. She's never worked on a TV show before, but also it's her baby, so she has to have a pretty strong voice. And I really liked that. I liked the perspective of this, like, especially like kind of, she talks about it being more of an introverted person getting shoved into a pressure cooker of, okay, we're all working now. And you have no experience in this, but also everybody's going to be leaning on you.
I also did like in the writer's room that like, as it started out, she was super awkward about it and stuff because she is not a social butterfly. She's not good at the whole social situation. But there are certain people in that room that kind of snuck their way in there to becoming actual good friends for her.
Yeah, I got a beef about that right here and now.
Okay.
About all these damn books that we read.
You tell it.
There's this like very common thing where the female, typically lead, comes into a new situation, whether it's a small town, a new job, whatever, and makes all these new friends. It's like a whole epiphany situation for her. But here's the thing. Why does this woman have room for friends in her life? She doesn't already have friends? No, I'm serious. She doesn't already have friends, which we know Helen doesn't, or she just moved. But also, these people that she's meeting, they got room for more friends in their life.
Sometimes you can make new friends.
Yes, I understand that. The point I'm trying to make is most people already have established social lives. So to just be like Nicole, one of the characters that are people in the writing room, she's like, oh, we're just going to hang out all the time and have these wine nights. And then I'm essentially just going to like move into your condo at the end of the book.
Well, I
These
get
minor characters already have lives.
I mean, I don't think that that's implying that they don't. I think especially like Saskia, she's really young. I don't think she's probably been in LA very long.
That's fair for her. Yeah, I get that one.
Nicole just likes getting in people's business. So I think it could
She
be
is
literally
nosy, I
anybody.
like it.
She's probably over at other people's houses as well.
Fair enough.
And Soraya is the opposite of that, where she has these really firm boundaries and is like, no, look, I appreciate you. I even maybe like you, but also I have a life with a wife and 2 kids. So figure it out.
Yep.
And we see that later on when for some reason Helen chooses to put her as her emergency contact. And she's like, yeah, that was kind of weird. I'm here now.
Don't do that with anybody else.
Don't do that in the future. But I guess it's fine.
I kind of get Helen's perspective. She's like, you're the only one I know in LA.
You were the one that I knew at the time.
Yeah.
Like, now there would be other people that she probably would list, but at the time.
Yeah. Because, like, her emergency contact probably would be her parents, but what are they going to do in New Jersey? I did like the fight that they had. God, this is way at the end, though. But when Grant is saying, why didn't you put me as your emergency contact? And she's like, I didn't know you then. He's like, you had to fill it out 3 weeks after being here. And I'm like, yeah, but Grant, she hated you at week 3.
Yeah. She was like, fuck this man, and not fuck this man.
Right.
Not in the good way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I the dynamics that Helen finds herself in make sense to me, specifically in the context of what the author wrote in the book. If we were to take these characters and transplant them to a different job, to a different area, whatever, I don't think it would work.
Agreed.
Fine. But for every other book out there that doesn't
Never do it again.
that doesn't have this very specific situation,
This very subset of rules.
stop making all of your minor characters just have availability in their lives. They have lives too.
It's true. It's true. But I do think this is another aspect of it coming from the perspective of a screenwriter. Every character that you're going to put on screen has to have a purpose to be there. Otherwise, they're just an annoying background character. And what's the point? Right? And so I think that that's true here in her writing as well. It's like if they're going to be on the page, they're going to be relevant for some reason.
Makes me think a little bit of the Truman Show, where like a person's whole purpose in a day is to like circle the block 18 million times just in case he happens to be there.
That would be insane. I think that would be the kind of job that would cause a person to go crazy.
I think so too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But yeah, so I mean, backing up a little bit to talk about Helen and how we got here. So she always, from what it sounds like, even when she was younger, wanted to be a writer. Like she's one of those people who's like, I've known what I want to be, right? Mm-hmm. And so she went into college, did all of that, and then she wrote this YA series called The Ivy Letters.
Yep.
Yeah.
That really is a metaphor for all the things that she's going through post Michelle's death. And I don't know, I'm surprised that more people in the writer's room, Grant specifically, as they found out more about her, didn't call her on any of that.
I was also surprised by that too, but we get almost no information about the Ivy show, the Ivy Letters, Ivy Papers.
Yeah.
Other than it's supposed to be a way that to represent her trying to find some sort of message in her sister's like computer and stuff that she's left behind.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like maybe the other people would have called her on it. I don't feel like Grant would have. Because I know you said specifically him, but I feel like that was, especially in the beginning of their like blossoming friendship, he's going nowhere near that topic.
I think I wouldn't have been particularly expecting him to speak it to her, but definitely because we do get his point of view and we do get his inner monologue, I would have expected it to be there. Of interesting, she just told me that tidbit about around Christmas about her going through her sister's hard drive. Interesting that that's in this story as well. You would think that there would be that moment of connection, and there were a few moments like that where I was like, you're showing us both of their perspectives, but you're not showing how both of them react to the same information. Interesting.
While we're talking about Grant's perspective, I never really understood his like immediate attraction to Helen. Like, I guess I kind of understood why he would always keep an eye on her, because there's a lot of shit in their backstory.
Yep.
But just like him almost immediately being like, I like you.
Sometimes it just happens like that.
Yeah.
I think that's all there was to it.
I think she's goofy in ways that he finds incredibly endearing.
I think also hyper observation of somebody, if you already find them physically attractive, really amps that shit up.
That's true.
He's got a bit of limerence going on there for a bit.
He's a little stalkery. I do love that her description of how he just like stares her down in the room, and I'm like, I would have thrown something at him by now.
I kind of get like why he's doing that though, right? She's trying to do the exact opposite of never interact with him, and he's like, we just gotta get past this woman or else this is never gonna work.
I did find a lot of Helen's like choices and reactions though very relatable. Like the idea of like, if a whole bunch of people were like, okay, we're gonna all trauma dump, are you ready? I would have been like, what the fuck?
In that moment I was like, if the room could swallow me, I would be so happy.
Yeah, her passing on opportunities to share and make herself endure to these people, I completely relate to. In fact, I frequently do. I'm like, that's cool information that you shared with me. Okay, bye. Like, I'm not going to engage further with that.
I especially think like Helen in those moments though, because if you're not prepared, and all of a sudden everybody looks at you and goes, what's a really like crazy thing that happened to you? And your brain goes, don't tell them the worst possible thing. That's all that's in your brain is Don't tell them that one thing.
Don't tell them that one thing that also implicates somebody else in the group who is already well loved. And if they're going to choose sides, it's going to be his.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, talking about choosing sides, there was that constant theme in the book of like, him being the homecoming king and winning over the room and winning over everybody, and her being just like the quiet kid in the corner. And especially the way that he talks about how she came off as being like mean, and she's like, no, I was just quiet, or I was just like, I just wasn't talking to you.
But at the same time, when she's confronted with the fact that she was in fact kind of mean in high school, she kind of owns up to it. She's like, I don't like the person I was back then, and the way I approached things. And so I think there is some of that self-reflection, but for her, it doesn't come out in, oh, I'm going to change my behavior. This is an unhealthy pattern where I do something that I regret and then I overanalyze it for the next 15 years. Which again, unrelatable. She's just not a relatable character.
Oh gosh. And I can imagine being in that situation where everybody in your trauma dump circle realizes that, oh, you two went to high school together? Tell me everything. And I'd be like, no, we don't talk about any of that.
Nope.
Right.
Nope. Well, and she doesn't have anything really to tell them. She didn't hang out with him.
Right.
She only has that one worst thing.
She has that one terrible, terrible thing that she doesn't want to tell them. Not only because, yes, her sister died, but because she doesn't like what that says, about him.
Well, and also
she knows that's not his fault.
Well, and also the trauma dumps that they're talking about, they're not really that bad. No. And Grant even says that at one point. They sound bad on the surface, but they're not that bad.
Yeah.
Right.
They're surface level bullshit stories to endear you to people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. His is he had a sex dream about his mom once. Mm-hmm. Which on the surface you're like, oh. And then you're like, okay, well, we've moved past that.
Yeah. Everybody's really had a sex dream that you don't understand how you
right.
Got here, why that person. But he also does it in such a way that he still comes out looking good because ultimately he gets to make the first joke about it, right?
Right.
Or he's like, but my therapist tells me that's completely normal. And so he knows how to turn things in his favor immediately. Something that Helen just completely can't relate to.
Yeah, she can't do it.
No.
I also think a lot of the demeanor could be a little bit explained by where they grew up. So while he was a very outlandish person for the East Coast,
yeah,
and makes sense that he gets along real well on the West Coast, a lot of times the people on the East Coast are much more subdued than people
Yeah.
on the West Coast. And so she went from one to the other, and that is a little shocking, I'm sure.
Well, they even talk about that a little bit in the book where I think it's specifically in Grant's perspective where he's like, it is not the same. Here you are expected to have at least fake vulnerability all of the time. Yeah, I liked a lot about the writer's room. There were a few times where it felt like it just was dragging on, and I was sort of like, okay, I think we can move past this. And yet I felt like I didn't get enough of what was happening with the story regarding her books.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to know more about how that was turning out and everything.
I also wanted to know more about the plot of the books. I think it would have helped us contextualize everything else that they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like they at one point named like these characters are falling in love too soon. How do we slow that down, right? Or these characters their story arc is about forgiveness, and so if they have sex this early, is that something that we can achieve by the end of the season, right? And it's like I don't know. I can't like take a side or agree or disagree because I have no idea what the plot of this story is, and so I felt out of the loop in that.
I'm sure it was supposed to be a metaphor, especially that one specifically for Helen and Grant, of if they have sex, can they also
Right.
forgive each other?
Right.
But
Still, I think the other part about that felt so weird is we do have weird moments where it feels like the characters aren't talking to each other, but they're talking to the reader. I don't know if you guys noticed these moments, but they were weird to me.
yeah,
The ones that stick out the most is when Helen and Grant are discussing for the first time, just like actually talking about what happened with Michelle that night.
well, that was the only time that the narrative used second person, and that was very confusing. I was like, are you talking to, like, one of the statements was Grant really wants you to know, and I was like, who is you?
Yeah.
Is you me?
Yeah.
Is you Helen? Who
Right.
is you?
And if he's talking to the reader, which, okay, weird, but like I can get with it, then is he not sharing this information with Helen? Like, is this just information that we know to contextualize the words that he is telling her? I don't know. That part was very confusing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in contrast to like those really weird narrative moments were ones that were just so poignant that like I felt like the author was talking about like things that I have experienced. I think one of the lines that just like hit me, and if I hadn't had to finish the book by the time I came here, I probably would have put it down for a little bit, was Helen saying, I've always been the healthy one and I don't know if I want to be healthy anymore, or it was something along those lines. And I was just like, that hits right in the core.
Yeah, you didn't need to come for me that hard.
Right? Or when they're talking about Helen and Michelle's relationship when they were in high school, that felt like it was really coming from like a place of personal knowledge on the author's part, talking about like how Helen had to try to reach out to Michelle as she was, doing things that Helen never would have thought of doing, like going out and partying and doing drugs and like getting into questionable sexual relationships with people. And then Michelle like pulling away or like fighting back against that. So then Helen pulls away because it's like, well, if you're not going to listen to me. And at one point she talks about, I think she's talking to Grant, and she's like, or maybe it's just an internal monologue. And she's talking about she was hoping, or she felt like this would all go away and the two of them would meet together again as sisters, like once they get past all of their teenage bullshit. And that's like one of the things that sticks with her because she doesn't have that.
This was a real poignant moment that just sticks in my mind, is so when they came and got her parents to take them to the morgue to ID her body, her first instinct, because I think her grandparents were coming over, or a neighbor or somebody was coming to stay with her. She was like, I have a very finite amount of time. So she tore through the house to get rid of all of Michelle's stashes.
Yeah.
And like trying to protect her sister even in death. That was so, like, it hurt my feelers. It hurt them so hard.
Well, and I guess I also, the way I read that is is that her brain hadn't quite caught up to the fact that her sister was gone. It was more just like, oh, my sister's in trouble. Let me go clean up real quick.
See, and I think she knew. I think she just felt that she needed to protect her even in death.
I think she logically knew.
Yeah.
But I think there's a massive difference between like your brain going, okay, this happened, and like all of the processing and the emotions behind that just not ready to deal with it.
Stuff catches up at you at weird moments.
Yeah. And then Helen having to talk about, she constantly like filters everything for her parents because she feels like she's almost protecting them from everything bad since then.
Well, and it's even a little bit more complicated than that because it's also with her mother, especially. It's if you give an inch, you're given a mile.
Yeah.
And it's like, I need to be allowed to be my own independent person from you. And her mom's perspective is, well, you give us nothing. And that really hit because it's like, yeah, I'm not going to call up my parents every time something is going bad and be like, so I'm going to tell you this shitty thing I have going on in my life. I do tell my parents a lot of shitty things that go on in my life.
Yeah.
Same.
But like there are some things that it's like, I just need this to be mine to process. I don't need your help with it. I don't need your perspective on it. And I certainly don't need your judgment on it. So you never need to know that it's happening.
And she does so many things just to avoid her parents' judgment, even to the point where in her career, she is writing young adult novels, even though that's not what she would prefer, because she can't have her parents reading anything she wrote that is that mature.
Yeah. Well, and then we get to see it. I think that's what really like hit the nail on the head is the scenes where her parents are there.
Oh God,
and
those hurt.
And you get to see just how much her mom like analyzes and judges everything Helen says and does, to the point where she brings cupcakes once when she comes to visit home, and her mom's like, well, I made a cake.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, we can have both.
Yeah.
We can have both.
I'm just going to say, my mother has never been upset with too much cake.
Yeah.
Except for if nobody will take it home. Then she's like, why is all this cake left in my house?
Don't leave this here.
That's the most
Don't
Midwestern
you leave
thing in
me
the
here
world.
with this cake.
It really is.
I will say with one of the things that was really strong in this book was bringing ideas earlier expressed that you didn't maybe have all the context for to make them matter.
Right.
And bringing them back around so you're like, oh, shit. Because one of the things Helen talks about regretting with her sister is she chewed her out for having a diary. She's like, why would you do that? Then you're like, mom has all the evidence she needs. Stop it. And then later on, we find out that in fact, the reason she feels that way is because her mom did read her fucking diary. Mm-hmm. And so she regrets it because she now doesn't have anything left except for old essays and things like that were on her sister's hard drive to connect to anymore. But at the same time, she was looking out for her sister.
She was trying to be helpful in what she thought because her mother was nosy.
Mm-hmm. And her mother is nosy again because that's how she finds out that Helen was with Grant, is because she looks at all of her text messages on her iPad. The other scene that comes back a lot, especially at the end, is when Helen is talking in the beginning about her, or she's internal monologuing about the time that she told a boy in college, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, I get that feeling. And then it comes back around because she doesn't tell Grant. She doesn't feel that she can tell Grant that she loves him. Mm-hmm. But she also didn't tell her last boyfriend, which is why he broke up with her. Mm-hmm. And it all stems from the fact that, at least I got it from the book, that her parents have never said I love you to her. And she never said it.
Well, for her, that I love you was literally the first I love you she ever spoke aloud.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then it was immediately shut down, which I'm not bashing him for that. I completely understand.
Right. If someone came at me with that energy a week in of knowing each other, I'd be like, no, I'm so sorry. But this is now super weird.
And so when she is faced with Grant telling her that he loves her, which I thought was like such a heartbreaking and wonderfully written scene of like these two have this I guess timeline, this end when she moves back to New York, and she's like, no, we're only going to be together until then. And then I'm going to move back and it's going to be clean and done. And he's like, and they get to that point and he's like, it's not clean. I love you. And they just like break down in his apartment. She's trying so hard in her brain to like, does she say it back? She thinks it. How does she process these emotions? What does it even mean? I thought that was so well done. It hurt my little heart.
It really reminded me of the scene in Jane Eyre when Rochester is begging Jane to stay after it's revealed like why they absolutely cannot get married. I will not spoil that for anyone, although it's like a book from like the 1800s, so like come on.
Right.
But he's on his knees begging her to stay and she's like, morally I cannot. So it's a little bit different in that aspect, but also not, because she's choosing to do what would be the best for her parents. And so it is coming from a standpoint of how can I not feel guilty about having this with you knowing it will hurt them. Yeah, complicated emotions.
It was complicated. It hurt my feelers a lot, and this was read to me. I was playing a video game and then just like stopped and just like sat there. I was like, I can't. Most of the time I'm completely fine. I can play a video game, listen to my book. I'm catching everything. Multitasking helps my brain go round. I have to. But in that moment I was like, you are too much. Go away.
Well, and then we get Helen getting in a car accident, which is like, I was really surprised how little her parents reacted to it. Like that was also super telling.
I think it's indicative, though, of the perspectives that we're getting on that.
Right.
Something deep in my stomach very early on in this book was like, somebody's getting in a car accident at the end of this book. I don't know who, but this is happening. And if you are making this a television show and this is the penultimate episode, right? Like it felt like that. It felt like we've been foreshadowing this dramatic episode the whole time. And here it is, a chance to confront the ghosts of the past for her parents. And they are instead not willing to go there. And so I think that her parents' reaction, one, we're only getting several hours after she is passed out.
Yeah.
Multiple people have said that her mom has been like losing her shit on all these doctors who won't let her see her kid. Her dad seems like the like very stoic, silent type. And so I don't know that they didn't have a much more visceral reaction. We don't get to see like what their lives are like on the car ride over, when they first get the phone call that their daughter's in trouble.
Well, and we don't know what they're like when it's just the two of them. It could be very different than what they are when they're with her.
Yeah.
I get that. I think like the most telling part for me is when her parents finally go in to the room with Helen, her patient room there, and the first thing they want to talk about is Grant.
Yeah, that I was like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
And obviously they've had to see him in the waiting room of the hospital the entire time. And her dad does actually kind of talk to him like just like in passing, or at least acknowledge him. But then to go and see your daughter, who's in such a bad car accident that like she has ribs broken. I think they said her clavicle was broken. And
that hurts like a bitch.
Well, it doesn't really heal very easily.
Yeah.
And then your first reaction is to say, I know you've been with that man.
Yeah, you looked through her fucking text messages while she's unconscious in a hospital bed. That's just slimy.
Again, this felt like an episode of television, like dramatic television, because it's one of those things where they were sitting there for hours with nothing to do. She looks on her iPad. That would have been a moment where you get a zoom in on the contents of the iPad, a zoom in as her face as it recognizes what's happening. And then that would be when the doctor finally says, okay, it's time for you to come in. And nothing else can be on her mind except for what she just saw, right?
Well, and Helen also says that in her internal monologue of, if this was a TV show, this would be the moment where the mother and daughter finally have this big like reconciliation, and they realize
understanding talk.
Yeah, they realize that they just need to focus on how much they love each other instead of all this other crap. And instead, that's not what happens, which made it feel way more real.
Yeah. I don't like reality.
Yeah, it definitely set you up for the Hollywood television ending.
Yeah.
And then was like, by the way, just so you know, this isn't what that is. They're not going to get a happily ever after.
Her and her parents.
Her and her parents, yes. And I do love though that like once Grant and her have the conversation about, you know, that no, we're not going to be together, blah blah blah, and she goes back, she kind of fuels that into writing a new book, but it's specifically letters to Michelle.
Yeah.
So it really turns into these things are healing me because I'm putting down on the page all these things that I wish I could have told her then and could tell her now. So it puts her in a healthier place to be with Grant when the time comes.
Yeah, I really appreciate that the author didn't write this magical moment when Helen finally finds Michelle's like secret piece of like her suicide letter or whatever, because while that happened a lot, maybe more in like 90s and early 2000s TV, that's not realistic, and it's kind of feeding a false fantasy that there is an answer, and there oftentimes is not.
Most of the time there's not when somebody completes suicide.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that there is comfort in staying in a place where you don't get closure sometimes. And I think that that's where Helen and her parents have lived for a really long time of we don't get to know, and we're going to sort of stay stuck in this pain because that's what's familiar.
Well, and I think at one point Helen talks about that, right? Like she's finally ready to address what it would take to heal. Other side to that is Grant's reaction to Michelle and Michelle's passing, which we only get in bits and pieces until we get the big like reveal. But one of the things that I really, really loved is his panic attacks that he gets. And they don't just happen like in like traffic or car accidents, though we do get a really big moment when that happens. But it also just happens when he's overwhelmed, when he's kind of faced with things that are maybe similar or remind him of the past. And it breaks this facade that we get from Helen that Grant is like Mr. Perfect Homecoming King. And we immediately find out that, I mean, maybe that's who he was in high school, but now he's an entirely different person.
Well, his life completely derailed after that day.
Of course.
It would have. Like, you can't have that happen to you because it happened to him. It's not something that he did. You can't have that happen to you and your life not change.
Well, we only get a brief discussion or thought from Helen about how selfish Michelle was, or how Helen doesn't blame herself or even her parents, but she blames Michelle. And it's not just for how that choice impacted her family, but it's also for her, like, she thinks about it once, how much it impacted Grant too. Like that seems to be like that clear moment of she's starting to forgive him, of he was another innocent party in this whole situation.
Well, and she talks about later when they're really getting in the thick of it that she feels like she forgave him long before she forgave Michelle, even to the point where she doesn't know if she really has forgiven Michelle for everything that happened. And I think that is the struggle I think she's having at the beginning when she's first realizing like, oh shit, I'm going to be working with this guy all the time, is that it's a lot easier to forgive somebody you don't have to see every day. You know, it's a lot easier to mentally forgive somebody who's abstracted in their distance, and he's going to be there, and you have to actually do it. You have to actually forgive him in order for things to move forward and be okay.
Well, she has one thing that I really liked about the writing is there are moments where she like in her mind corrects herself, because we all do that, I feel like. Or because at one point I think she said, I have to work with the man who murdered my sister. And then she like corrects herself and be like, this was not his fault. You can't say that. He didn't do this.
Right.
in many ways, he's no more guilty than the car itself, right?
Yeah.
But it's really easy to assign blame to him because it absolves her from having to look at the blame she has for Michelle.
Well, and that is unfortunately a really hard thing when it comes to families of people who complete suicide, is that you're angry at them, but you can't be angry at them because they're dead. And so having to realize that it is okay to be angry with them, and you can still love them, and all of the guilt that you kind of get with that, because it's really hard on where to land, where to feel.
Well, and we also get from Grant's perspective the fact that he hasn't really forgiven himself. There's always that thought in his brain of like, what if I would have not went to that party that night that brought me on the road? What if I had left earlier or left later? Or what if I took a different direction home? Or what if I would have just seen her a second earlier and I could have like stopped?
And that's not fair to do to yourself.
No.
But I don't know anybody who would have a thought process that was different.
No, I would. I know I would.
Yeah. One of the things that I thought was really interesting too, and I think was well written and well done, and I like the way that the author explored this, because I think it often gets dismissed or gets put into the category of like, why would you even think that kind of thing? And she's talking about not just being angry at Michelle, but being angry with suicide prevention hotlines and suicide prevention work in general, because there's the implied implication that if you just did the right thing, said the right thing, if you had shown more compassion and generosity and kindness to this person, that they wouldn't have made that choice. And that's a really cruel perspective to put on people. And so I like that was acknowledged, that there is sort of this responsibility put on people that is in many ways beyond your control. Like the vague idea of check in on people. Well, it's like, okay, what if I do and they say they're completely fine, and then I badger them about, are you really fine, and make the whole situation worse? It's complicated, and you can't simplify it down to a simple catchphrase like that. And when you put the blame, whether intentionally or unintentionally, on these families, all you're really doing is increasing, as she talks about, the odds of someone else in the family having that thought process. So I really like that she addressed it in a way that was responsible, and I think didn't leave any chips on the table.
Yeah. I must say something that might get some people a little heated. This book, the premise of this book reminded me a lot of like a Colleen Hoover premise.
Sure.
And yet it was, but what if we did it with like an approach that says, we're not going to just focus on the angst and how we can ramp up tension. It's how can we talk about a really hard subject in a way that is like approachable and makes people not romanticize it.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely agree with, she does not romanticize any part of that.
Right.
She very clearly puts it into the category of, this is hard and complicated, and you're not going to walk away with answers because nobody fucking has them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in the relationship too, right? Like that's something we haven't really talked about, is Helen and Grant together. And one of the things that comes up a lot is, well, we got together because of like this trauma bonding situation. Is that the only thing that defines us? And it's like, no, it's not the only thing that defines you. But also then there's the guilt, especially from Helen, of like, should I be with this man? Like, is it okay that I have this connection to him? And it's like, it is, but it's not easy. It's not straightforward in any way.
Absolutely.
Well, and there's a lot of factors for her to consider. He acts like she's insane sometimes when she talks about him deserving something else, something better, something healthier. But that all 1000% makes sense, because in the same way that he just in his existence is bringing up a trauma for her, she's doing the same thing to him. And she's at least acknowledging it, that, you know, just because we have this insane attraction, just because we clearly care for one another, that doesn't eradicate all of the history we have.
Yeah, but I do think from Grant's perspective, though, when at least kind of my interpretation of it is, she Helen is like creating this magical fantasy that if Grant is just not with her, he'll go find somebody else and everything will be like sunshines and rainbows. And Grant's like, no, he still has his own shit.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't just go away.
You have
Right.
this thought process of me in your mind, and that is not reality.
Right.
I'm not the high school jock that I was.
Yeah, these panic attacks aren't happening just because you're here. They were happening before.
The thing about that too is I appreciate that it wasn't just something that came on when thinking about Grant, that she has this fantasy idea of all of the people that she's working with, or even her friends back in New York, that, oh, well, if they're not talking to me, it probably is because I've done something wrong because they're amazing, but I'm not, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, they're just people who have complicated lives just like you, and that they didn't always make you the priority. And sometimes that sucks, but that's also like, that's life, right? In order to compartmentalize and package her world in a way that is good or bad, she assumes the best and the worst of people in all context.
Absolutely. And she didn't need to call me out that hard. Because my brain goes weird places. I most of the time can talk myself out of it. Every now and then I need to, specifically with one of my best friends, because I know she's going to be like, bitch, you dumb. And I'll be like, so I know you're not, but my stupid ADHD hyperfocus is saying you meant it. So I need the words to come out of your mouth to make it shut up.
But the thing with Helen is she doesn't.
Yeah.
And tell anybody or interact with anybody in regards to that. And you can kind of see that maybe that was a learned behavior or a taught behavior from her parents, especially when, you know, she tells her mom, oh, I'm going to go to a therapist. And her mom's like, what for? I don't know, because my sister died.
Right?
Right. You need therapy. My goodness.
Right.
Everyone could use a little therapy.
Right? Even the most untouched by trauma person in the world probably wouldn't do too bad with some guidance on how to process your emotions.
Yep.
That said, I'm not currently in therapy.
I'm not currently, but I've done it.
Like, I get, but what I'm saying is I get the, like, that initial step to get yourself there is hard.
It is really hard. It is. Especially because there's no like clear path. There's no like, oh, go here, do this, get answer.
Right.
You know, and I don't mean like answer of like you've solved trauma. I mean answer as in this is how you do like go to a therapist.
Yeah.
Well, I think outside of watching movies and television, the majority of us don't probably have the tools to communicate with a therapist without the therapist guiding you on how to communicate with them.
That's been my biggest hurdle of going to a therapist is like, how do I even tell you what is life? What life be?
I don't know how to talk to a stranger about things that I don't talk to often even myself about. You know, like my inner monologue is like, no, let's push that to the back.
I didn't think I did, but somehow they found it.
Well, that they're trained to do that, right?
Yeah, they're professionals.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I know they're professionals, but even like after walking out, I was just like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
You Jedi mind trick me or some shit?
Kind of. I do want to talk about, there is just this really cute like transition for them into like a little bit of a more of a friendship than sexy times and work. And that's after she spent the one night there and he had realized that he needs to get like a fucking coat rack because he doesn't have enough hangers in his front closet to hang another person's coat on. And so they go to the flea market and she apparently is just fucking bomb.com at this. And it was just really cute for like, oh no, I don't think it's worth that. Like let's do 25 and then it's like worth $150.
Yeah, her bartering skills apparently are top tier.
Just legendary. And I just, for some reason, that stuck out to me as just being really cute and kind of a fun thing for them.
I needed more cute moments like that. I also liked the moment where she got high in the cabin.
Oh, fuck, I loved that.
And she was like, hi, kid. No, I must be the one who, like, puts Band-Aids on your hands because you scraped them a little bit.
I also really loved the, like, apparently peer pressure still works on me.
Well, yes.
But yes, also.
I mean,
also yes.
Also, yes.
You're not wrong.
I wasn't exactly sure where they were going to go with this, right? I knew that they had a big bridge to cross to get to the romance aspect of it, but it's really clear that physical things were going to be a door to open for them, because that same camping trip, Grant is too tall for the bunk beds, and so he snatches up the comforter, and she's like, okay, I'll take the bunk bag, no problem. And then she doesn't have the comforter on the bed, so she has to go get it from him. And he's like been like already asleep basically in it, and she's like,
Which fuck men that can do that.
right?
Asshole.
But she finally gets it from him and curls all up in it, and she's like, oh my God, his smell is everywhere. And
I feel that.
She's like, if I have the comforter down just right, I can stay kind of warmish and not smell him until a breeze rolls in. And then eventually she's just like, I'm gonna just cover my whole head.
Just is what it is.
I'm just gonna breathe it.
I don't want to cuddle somebody, but I'll cuddle the blanket that smells nice.
You have weird rules.
I don't. People should just not touch me.
But then we come back to the weird sex dream thing, because she's a sex dream about Grant.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. And is basically ready to like fireworks and wakes up, which is the worst.
Oh, God. I get so mad.
Like, come on, man. You couldn't give me 5 more minutes of sleep.
Wait a minute. Do you guys orgasm in your sleep?
Not, well,
Yeah.
No.
No,
And also,
but
yes.
Not
like
I just wanted the dream to go on longer, God
It
damn it.
feels-
No, I get that. I get that. I get that.
Like I don't physically, but like my brain is sending me the messages that I did. And so,
Dopamine.
yeah.
Huh.
Have you never,
Oh, I've had plenty of sex dreams, but usually, like, they don't
you've never
end.
finished?
No.
It's sort of like, it's sort of like watching a porno. You're not really there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that. Anyway, so then they are kind of from that point on a little obsessed with each other, whether or not they're ready to admit it. And so it's a slippery slope. As soon as they get home for Christmas and meet up, the slope is like, now it was like a 90-degree plateau, and then it was like no, 0, and they just like are plummeting towards constant sexy time.
Yeah.
And I will say, for a book that's a sad girl book, there was a lot of sexy time in this book.
There was, but it was all, like, in the middle.
Yeah.
It was
needed more at the
concentrated.
end.
It was concentrated, I will say. But the variety, they did not immediately jump into bed with each other. And so we got a whole bunch of great sexy scenes where I was just like, hello, hot damn.
I loved a lot of the, like, physical, like, description of the physical buildup of, like, just, like, touching hair and, like, cuddling on laps and, like, stroking knuckles across cheeks and things. It was
Yes.
very good.
Intimate touches. Something that is often like yada, yada, yada. in
Yeah,
the
it's
book,
kind of
you know?
glazed over in books, and the more it happened, I was like, oh, hot damn.
Please keep describing this to
Yep.
me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially that first time that they really, like, were physically just, like, touchy-feely with each other. Nothing really happened in his old bedroom at the
Yes.
house.
Yes.
I was like, oh, hello.
Right? I was like, why is this so hot? Because it
And
was.
goofy. At the same time, it was endearingly goofy and hot while they're looking through an old yearbook.
I also just really liked the power play between the two of them, because the next interaction that they have, because Helen's like, that was a choice. One I shouldn't repeat. And so she like cuts off all contact, and then he, or at least doesn't send him any contact, and he doesn't send any to her. And so she gets a text or an email from him that's like, hey, so there's this New Year's Eve party. You should come. And that's it. And she shows up in basically like her nightgown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And proceeds to have this like push and pull with him, where finally she just like is like, here's my hand, I'm getting what I want in your pants, down in this like guy we went to high school's basement.
Was it his parents' basement? Did he live with his parents?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I could envision it so well.
I could too.
Yes.
It was so sad.
Yes. No, the exact couch.
Yep.
I know the like vibe of the old TV that like basically never gets used, but like we're not going to buy a new one.
Because it basically never gets used.
Mm-hmm.
See, the thing that like because again, I don't envision things, but my olfactory sense is pretty strong. As I was like, I could smell how musty those basements are.
I can envision the carpet really,
Yeah.
which is probably most of the reason for the musty smell.
Yeah.
I do like though that they don't kiss for a while,
For a long time.
for a very long time. They
there
actually
are
do.
well, there are a lot of kisses, but they're not on the mouth.
Right.
So yeah, because that whole scene, that I was like, she is strong, she is powerful, she's taking over the world. I aspire to be her, because he's just so at her mercy. And then again, they're like, so we're not talking about this. Bye.
Right. Yeah.
And so we get back to the writer's room, and she's pulling a move that I'm all too familiar with, which is I'm just not going to look at you.
Yep.
Because if I look at you, then I feel things, emotions, thoughts, sometimes not positive emotions. Either way, if I look at you, the things that happen. Okay, so we're not doing that. So like, wow, that speck of dust on the carpet is insane.
Also, just saying, I'm incredibly pale, and the second I look at you, I will blush.
And Grant chooses the opposite tactic, which is if I stare into your soul,
I fuck you.
I love that we eventually find out that everybody in that fucking writer's room knew what was happening.
how could you not?
yeah.
Right.
Right? Like they're just like, oh, we're keeping this a secret. And I'm like,
Bitch, nobody knows.
Everybody
knows.
everyone knows. Like the only person who doesn't know is Soraya. And that's just because she's like, I have a job to do. Believe it or not, this is my fucking place of work. Could you guys be less stupid? And I respect her for that.
Yeah.
I care not to know.
Yeah.
Those moments reminded me a lot of sports romances, especially when like both characters are in the sport, whether it's like a hockey player and his, I don't know, one of the trainers or something. Those constant moments of like, we're at work, but also sex at times.
Well, their whole dynamic is literally my worst fear. They're like, the thing I want least in life is for me to find a romantic partner at work. That horrifies me, because the idea that anyone would take me in even a molecule less seriously because I've been flirting with the guy next to me cannot handle that. I can't handle. Like the way they talk about them, the way that like Nicole and Saskia feel entitled to know about what's happening with the two of them, all of that like had my anxiety going like this. I was like, oh, gross. This is the worst situation in the world.
I also think that it would be way too easy to fall into really bad habits, which they kind of do.
Yeah.
Like going to Grant's office all the time for naughty bits.
For lots of naughty things.
For just a little afternoon delight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, like it was cute, but it was also not cute, you know?
I will say though, the scene where he, services her in his office and then writes his address on her inner thigh, I was like, oh man.
fuck.
That was bold and hot.
It was bold and hot.
The second he pulled out the marker, I was like, what do you do? Oh, sir.
I also love that, though. The thing about the two of them is they do these like really bold gestures, and then they're like, just so you know, if you're uncomfortable with this. So with that one, he was like, just so you know, it's a washable marker. It's okay.
Right. And later when she brings it up, he's like, yeah, sorry, I had a bit of an alpha moment. And she's like, no, it's okay.
It's okay, sir. It's okay.
I just like that it was bold, but still respectful. It can wash off.
Yeah.
Bold.
Yeah.
And she didn't wash it off. She went on a date with that.
Yeah, she did. And
Here's
then she
the thing
went to his
I
house
don't
after.
understand. What if you couldn't read it, especially like marker on skin, or is it upside down? Like, do you have to like flip your leg up in order to see it? There's a lot of questions I have about how logistically
Honey,
successful
it's
this
called
is.
take a picture with your phone.
Yeah. That's literally what I thought too. I was like, logistically, you take a picture of it with your phone and then you go, okay, look at that.
That's so smart. If only I had thought of that. I would have been sitting there going, God damn it, I can't read this shit.
Also, his address seemed pretty like straightforward. So then she goes to his place, though, and
After
they
the
have
date.
after the date, and they play Connect 4. I don't know. There's a lot of push and pull constantly between these two of like, are we gonna? Are we not? Are we gonna? Are we not?
For sure.
And they still don't. She
Nope.
stays, but they don't fuck.
Oh, that's right.
He does promise no fucking.
Yep.
He did not promise no hand jobs.
But yeah, no, that's not a prerequisite in the rules. It was
Right.
just no fucking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they go and buy a coat rack.
He follows
next
the
day.
rules that she sets forth, but he does early on. I can't remember if it was that night or if it was earlier on in their interactions with each other, but he says, "I don't know the rules of this game we're playing," and she's like, "What game?" And he's like, "Ma'am, damn it, you are making this so confusing." And she's like, "Yes."
Yeah.
That's it. And so, yeah, I think she talks about it later on in the book, and I like the way she phrased it. It was something along the lines of, we're just playing this game with each other where Grant pushes for more than I am okay with, or than the rules dictate, and I make it difficult for him. She says it a little bit different than that, but in response to the Nicole calling her out that Grant's in love with her,
Right.
And she's like, "No, we're not in love. We're just playing this like weird game where like he keeps pushing for more, and I make it tricky, and that's the game of it. Like, no, ma'am."
No, ma'am.
Well,
He's
that's
not playing a game.
yeah. I think that's a pretty typical response of like, are we in a relationship or aren't we? Like, what is happening is to be like, no, we're just kind of like having fun. We're just dancing around. And everybody on the outside is like, bitch,
No.
you are falling for each other. Everybody can see it.
Yeah, you have neon signs above your head that say "love," and there's
Yes.
butterflies. It's a whole
Sparkles.
thing. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to observe.
Yeah.
You know, I also just like that night was also again very hot. The whole thing of like they're finally making out, kissing for the first time, and then he begs her basically to stay, and she's like, "I don't have any clothes," and he's like, "I got you covered.
Right.
I got you. I'm gonna put you in my shirts."
And boxers.
And boxers. And then it turns into this thing where like we agreed not to fuck, but I'm gonna do anything and everything else because you didn't say no to that.
And you're not saying no now.
It was hot.
It
Was.
hot.
It was very, very hot.
The scenes were written very well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And peppered in, like, yes, there was quite a bit in that, like, center area, but they were peppered in between different things. It wasn't just like, sex.
Well, and it felt like a really good lead up,
Yep.
right? To when we finally get to the full sex in
Whole
the
kit and
office.
caboodle.
Whole enchilada.
I don't think my first time with a partner I would want to be in the office, but you know, you do you, boo.
I think by that point, they had played around enough that it was
They'd fucked around. It was time to find out.
it was time.
Well, I'm not saying this verbatim, but I did really like this phrase that she used where she was like, "We've exchanged 3 or 4 orgasms with each other, and I don't know who's winning right now." And I was like, yeah, that's a great way to say that. So after that, they do in the office, which again, like it could not be me.
No.
Absolutely not. But you know, whatever makes you happy.
I'd be too afraid people would see my naughty bits.
I'd be too afraid people walk in and then my entire reputation is shattered. Just no. And like also from the like other employee standpoint, I don't want to walk in and see your ass. I don't want to walk in and see you
No.
getting down. That to me would also be a nightmare scenario because and I have to live with that knowledge in my brain. My brain doesn't erase things like that. It
Yeah.
stays forever and it comes back later on.
And you have
It
to
doesn't
like
keep everything, but there are certain things that it certainly does.
and then you have to look at those people again because you work with them and they
Uh-huh.
did it on the table that everybody works at, so you just like are constantly looking at the spot that they fucked. It's a whole thing. From there we get like kind of just a montage-esque of a bunch of scenes of them kind of being together, but also like, what is this? What is the relationship we have? Until his birthday, where Grant specifically asks for his birthday to host a dinner party, and he is allowed to touch her in front of all of their all the people they
Coworkers.
invite, their coworkers and friends and stuff.
Would not accept those terms.
I don't know. I thought it was actually really
It was
sweet.
kind of cute. He
'Cause,
wasn't doing inappropriate
No,
things.
Yeah.
but like if we're not going to let voice, hey, just so you know, we're together. So that's a thing beforehand. And this is like how you let people know. Absolutely not.
Well, I think that was kind of the point from Grant, is he wanted to let people know, and this was how he could convince Helen to do it. And also everybody already knew.
Oh, they
Right?
fucking all knew. They're like, oh God, he's eye fucking her across the table.
Yeah.
She won't look at him.
Like, can you imagine? You're like, I have to go to work today, and there's this couple in my work group, and they just need to bone it out, and it's super awkward.
I don't know. I love the drama. As long as I'm not in it, like I'm not.
Oh yeah.
I'm not. It's not involving me. I love watching it from a distance. I'm like, yes.
Well, it's like with the party thing. Like, I find it incredibly adorable that like he gets to touch her as much as he wants during the party. Like he's touching her hair and stroking her skin and everything. And I'm internally going, I would fucking hate that as a partner. But I love it for other people.
Well,
I also
thought
love that
cute.
it was constantly Owen catching it, who is like pretty much the silent partner in all of the conversations. Like, does not really do too much. I think he was the one who provided the weed gummies.
Yes,
Yes.
he was.
But other than that, he's like just the chill dude in the back, and he's like nudging people. He's like, "Did you see that? Did you see that? Did you see it?"
You know he's secretly like the worst gossip in the entire group.
He
Oh, for sure.
is the gossip of the group.
Yeah.
Like he is the one that like if you need the tea, you go to Owen. It's always the quiet ones.
Oh, yeah.
Don't trust them. Just saying.
Hi, friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You're looking at me. I was getting big accusatory eyes from Wiggles there.
You always know.
I always
who you
know.
get the tea from.
I always know. I don't spread it.
Except to us.
Well, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I don't spread it to the entire group. I tell you two bitches because I'm sorry, you adopted me and now I must spill the tea.
The
My
problem.
network of spies.
The thing is the tea. Maybe when you tell it to Wiggles, it doesn't go a whole lot of places.
That's true.
If you tell it to me, you're opening up a whole fucking dam of problems.
I'm aware. I know these things.
I got places for all the tea to go.
I just love that when you said it, like the whole side eye was like, Danny. I'm like, I see you looking at me, you bitch.
Yes.
From there, their relationship, like, it seems nice, but it does have that looming
Expiration
deadline.
date.
Yeah. And Helen just keeps doing what she does, which is to not tell her parents that Grant is working on her show.
Oh, God, that drove me nuts. I was like, bitch, this is going to blow up in your face.
Oh, and it does.
Oh, and it does.
It does.
There's no way it couldn't. And it's interesting. I think ultimately her thought process was, I will be safe away from my parents when they realize it. You know, like,
But it didn't work that way.
no.
Because she brought them to set. What was she thinking? What was going to happen?
Exactly. Well, and the other thing is like, okay, so I understand not wanting to give them all their dirty deeds,
Right.
but maybe cluing them in a little bit, like sit them down and have the conversation. Like, look, here's the thing. He is a writer on my show and we have become friendly. She doesn't have to let them know that she's in a romantic relationship with him. They don't need to know all that things,
Right.
but just like clue them in a little bit that, hey, him and I are sort of friends now. That's all that she would have needed to do, and then they wouldn't have maybe batted an eyelash at it.
Oh, her mother would have.
Oh, yeah,
without a
I know.
doubt.
She's a nosy bitch.
But at the very least, it would have been better than her finding out like through an email, through a work email that her parents got added to the distribution list of.
Yeah.
Which also, maybe
Who
I don't
added
understand. Yeah, I don't think I understand Hollywood. Who is adding random not employees on the work distribution list?
I don't understand it. I know for a fact I don't understand how Hollywood works. Like some of the things that you see in interviews or stuff like that, I'm just like, that's like so not a normal policy under any other circumstance.
Yeah, no.
Right.
Why would you do that?
And I can understand bringing your parents to set for like an hour or two, but her dad was there all day for multiple days.
Yeah.
Right.
For like 12-hour shoots.
Yeah.
What are you doing also? Like,
Didn't you get bored?
right?
Like, people think, ooh, it's so glamorous. It's really fucking not.
Well, they even demonstrate, there's one of the scenes where the chick is just not getting her line right. And so she misses her mark. She misses her, she thinks that she's got another line because the other actor does a dramatic pause, right? And that happens all the fucking time. Everything has like 4 or 5 takes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's rarely a one and done. And even if it is, they're still going to do a second take to make sure that they've got something in the can.
Well, and then that's just, oh, we did that take from this perspective or this direction. Now we have to shift the entire scene, but do the same scene over again.
Right.
Yep.
We need to flip it so that we've got the other one behind camera.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Blanket statement that needs to be made about like artistic industries in general. They're not glamorous.
No.
90% of the time.
It's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
The point is to make it look glamorous when the product is done.
Right.
But getting there is a dirty process.
It's all a facade. One of my favorite bosses I've ever had, whenever we would be doing something gross, because inevitably there are a lot of gross things that you do in theater to make things look nice.
Yeah.
He would just turn to me and would say, "This is why I got into theater. The glamour." That's all I could think of throughout this whole show. I was like, yes, the glamour.
Glamour.
Yeah. So then we get to the breakup, which is just like, I mean, unless you had more to say before we get to the breakup, but man, that hurt.
It hurt a lot.
That was a good writing right there, because it felt like they were both wrong and both in the right at the same time.
Agreed. I also, we've discussed it to death, but none of us are like huge fans of the third act breakup. But this one made sense to me because it seemed like they both needed to get a little more healthy in their thought processes before they could actually be together.
Well, and you saw it coming, right? There's one thing about a third act breakup when it just like seems to spontaneously happen. And there's another thing where it's like, I saw it coming from fucking chapter 2, y'all.
Yeah. Like, of course there was a third act breakup because there's a lot of heavy shit involved in this.
Yeah.
I also liked the effort that they both put into not hurting each other's feelings. Like, they were going to be hurt no matter what, but they didn't turn it into, well, I've really got to like,
this is your
dig
fault.
it in,
Right.
and be mean about it. Like, Helen was just like, you knew what this was, and Grant's perspective of it is, you don't have to say you love me, but you do have to understand that I love you, right? And so none of it was, I'm going to say hurtful things about you to you in order to make this an easier, clean break.
Right.
Yeah.
And I really liked that, because that's the thing that makes it hard to recover from, is if in the heat of the moment you're trying to just get away from all the emotions that are piling up, you go, oh, I know this thing that if I poke at it is going to hurt them.
Yep.
And that will make them not want to come back to me.
I think that's why I liked this third act breakup, because there was never a moment in it where I didn't like either of them. I liked them both just fine. Like, I understand the reasoning behind both sides. I liked them both still. And I liked that, okay, well, now I've, done this, that, and the other thing to make myself healthier in the situation.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing, too, that I find really shitty about a lot of third act breakups is, oh, we broke up and then we're back together. And this book was very much, we broke up for reasons that kind of seem that are within our control, but are kind of outside of our control. And then there's a lot of time trying to figure out what happens next. And we see from Grant that he never gets there. Like, he never gets to the, like, what do I do now moment. And Helen is like, I have other shit I have to work on. I have to figure out my own, like, relationship with my parents, my relationship with my writing, relationships with my friends, and, like, where do I even live? And so when they finally get back together, it just, I don't know, it felt inevitable. Not because we're reading the book, obviously, and we know they come back together. But it felt like, okay, you guys have thought this through and you came to the conclusion that we do need to be together.
I think it also really works well because you can tell that they have very different attachment styles, both from how they describe themselves and how other people interact with them. And from the very beginning, Grant is constantly saying that he's too needy, and that's the thing that's causing these breakups, right? And her attachment style is very avoidant.
I just had a moment of, oh my God, is she me?
Well,
Yeah.
they don't make the characters relatable for nothing.
God damn it.
But yeah, so I think that the way that they find their way to each other is interesting and also makes sense because she leaves a breadcrumb for him to follow. And he goes, "Yup, I'm coming. Is this where you said yours? Is this it? Does that, ma'am, does this mean we're basically in love again?" And she's like, "Yeah."
But also, yes.
Like,
Yes.
Like, it was definitely the, like, you did the comma after dearest.
It was that moment.
Yeah. It's like, okay, calm down. But yeah, and that kind of is the book. Like, what's left is, them getting back together, having a chat with their parents, him proposing, and general happily ever after vibes.
Yeah, but I do really like that her parents aren't just like, okay, we accept him now. I mean, her dad kind of seems to be like, oh, well, you're getting married and that's good. And mom is still just like, I don't approve of any of this.
I don't like anything. And so if you could, I don't know, give me exactly what I want without me telling you what I want, great. Bye.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and that's the end of the book.
Well, if it's the end of the book, do you know what that means? Ratings time!
Thank you.
Yeah. Would you like to start with a spice?
Oh, sure. I really like the spice in this book, like a lot. So I might be bold, it might be spicy. I'm going to say a 4. The silence is deafening.
So I'm not disagreeing with a 4 because what was given was plentiful and well written and
varied.
It's not.
Variety is the spice of life.
It is. It's just not. It's not the intensity that I normally would like.
Right.
Go with like a 4, but there are different types of spice, and as we've said, it was plentiful and well written and varied, and they traded orgasms, and I love that for them. So I think I'm gonna go with the 3.5 because usually I keep the 4 for like a little more intensity. Yeah, a little more intensity on it, but.
I'm going to bring, oh God. So here's the thing. When I read it, there's a few things about the sex scenes that kind of bothered me. And they come up in a lot of sex scenes. And I think it's maybe not this book and just the fact that I'm over and we orgasmed together magical moment. So I was actually leaning towards a 3.
Fair enough. Variety is the spice of life, my love.
That's fine.
Okay, cool. I feel like
we don't have to always agree.
No, I think my main reason for giving it a 3 is because it ramped up so good. So good was the ramping up. And then we get there and then we only have a couple sex scenes and then there's no more. And I'm like, but you've got to spread it out.
I also get the why. Like in terms of story structure, I understand why bringing it back around to the spice was inappropriate for the information that was surrounding it.
Fair enough.
Romance. I got there first.
You did, you bitch. As I was literally going, bleh.
Like you're literally probably finger the rolled R. I'm like, no.
I struggle with this because I feel like there was not enough like moments focused on them like emotionally coming together.
I would agree with that, actually.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to give it a 3.
I was also leaning to a 3 because I do wish there was just more of the emotional need of it.
Yeah.
I think the romance level was appropriate to the story that was trying to be told. And that meant sacrificing some of the romance. So I agree with the 3.
Okay. Yeah. Overall rating then.
I gave it a 4. I really liked this book.
I also gave it a 4.
It gave me emotional feels.
Yeah. It made me think very existentially about things that I don't want to think about.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm good. I'm on a 4. I'd probably even venture to a 4.25 if we did quarters.
Yeah, actually same. It's not quite to a 4.5, but
yeah, it's right at that like edge for me where it's like knocking on 4.5's door because I'm just There were a few times where it like brought its own pacing to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
And there were a few times where the story, I had to backtrack in order for it to make sense because the structure of the point of view switching was so hard to manage.
And it happened so frequently.
Yes.
I think that's the other reason that made it hard to manage.
Yeah. So I'm going to agree with a 4.
Yeah.
What about recommendations?
God damn it. These are my lines.
Ha Suck it, bitch.
I mean, you can say it if you want.
No.
Okay.
How about recommendations?
So for me, I have a couple of recommendations. One is going to be Jane Eyre.
Okay.
The characters, the trauma bonding, the like difficulty with dealing with a hard truth that cannot be solved.
Mm-hmm.
It all just like felt very in that vein. So I would literally anybody should read this. Everybody should read this book. So there's that.
Can I piggyback off that real quick?
Yeah.
If you want a modern version of Jane Eyre, Jane and Edward by Melody Edwards was one of my absolute like 5-star reads of the year that I still think about. So,
Oh.
but you have to go into it. I think knowing a little bit about Jane Eyre to know that there is going to be points where Edward is not there for a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The other recommendation that I have, it comes with a little asterisk next to it, which is the show 30 Rock. The reason I'm recommending that is like it's all about a writer's room. Comedy, obviously, and not YA drama, but
Right.
but still. But there has been some like reflection on some of the episodes that haven't aged well. So
Correct. So
take that into consideration if you've never watched it at all before. The dynamics that they have, the interesting things with romances and like the conversations that they have, I'll feel like if you want to know more about that, I would check that out.
Liz, what about you?
I have 2. So the first one is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. We've recommended her so many times. That's because we did a podcast episode on it. But I feel like the workplace dynamic in that really kind of reminded me of this book, especially the scenes where they're like huddled on the floor or eating Chinese food, that very one specific scene. And then my second one would be Just for Summer by Abby Jimenez. If you want more of the like inside the relationship or this like massive family drama from both characters impacting the relationship so heavily. And even though they don't have a shared past in that book like they do in this one, it's all about like overcoming like your personal trauma to eventually like maybe be together.
Okay. And the one that I was going to suggest is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. It has a lot of the sadder themes involved in it and everything. There is death involved. There is a little bit of a supernatural aspect to that one, but there's also a little bit of a enemies to lovers thing because he's her new editor and he pisses her off, and then all of a sudden he shows up on her doorstep dead.
And because she can see ghosts.
Because she can see ghosts, yeah. On her doorstep dead because she can see ghosts, and the getting to know you and learning about each other aspect of it.
And the writing.
And
like,
the writing.
Just like the,
yep.
Yeah.
And another one that we did an episode about. So check
Yes.
out Fine Print, check out The Dead Romantics in our back catalog because they were good episodes. So there, audience member.
You're so aggressive.
Yeah. I got overexcited.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of the episode. If you like this episode, find us out there on the socials at Wrong Dust Jackets, primarily on TikTok and Instagram, but really kind of wherever you want to find us. Check out YouTube as well. We're there. And please go to our website, wrongdustjackets.com. You can find lists of episodes that we've done in the past, ones that we're doing like upcoming, and our blog posts for episodes that don't, or books that don't quite make it into an episode. And I finally added a new blog post.
Look at us go.
Oh, yay!
Recently. So there's a new one out there. So we would love it if you gave us 5 stars or a like or a comment, whatever is available to you on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And that's all we've got. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.